Hello everyone and welcome to Maya Creek TV. I'm Tao. It's March 1st, 2011 and it's about 6 weeks before the average last frost date. And so it's time to start seeds. Actually, I could have probably started them a couple weeks ago, but I'm just now getting around to it. The last couple years I've used just those little plastic trays that have like the little indentation for you to put like potting soil or seed starting mix in. And they just kind of fall apart. I mean, if you've ever had those black plastic trays, or just the plastic pots, they just kind of break down in the sun and not exactly sustainable. So I was reading The New Organic Grower by Eliot Coleman. I actually read it twice a couple years ago and got the idea from soil blocks from that. So the idea is that you just get together the right mix with the right consistency, and then you just push a form into it, like this, and you make different sized blocks that hold together by themselves. And you basically just mist them, and the roots start to hold the block together after a while. And the fact that there's nothing containing them, they get air on all the sides, so it actually prevents the roots from pushing out and kind of keeps them air pruned, is what they call it. Eventually the plants would grow into the other blocks around it, but you can actually put these blocks inside of bigger blocks for bigger plants that you want to start in them. It's kind of interesting. The forms are a little expensive. I think this one was $30-something, I'm not sure. They have bigger ones, so these are the 2-inch blocks, and then there are 1.5-inch blocks, and then mini blocks, and then there's also 3-inch blocks and 4-inch blocks. And they have different little plugs in the top, and so the form, it has a little indentation in the top of the block for you to put the seed in. And then once you mash it into the mix, you can then move it and plop it down in your tray. So the first thing I need to do is make the flats or the trays to hold the blocks. Eliot Coleman recommends building the trays out of plywood, very simple. And he also says that you can get used bread trays because they have holes in the bottom, so they get the plants even get air on the bottom. I haven't looked into that, and I have plywood sitting around, so I'm going to go ahead and make them with plywood. Seems pretty simple, so that's what I'm going to do next.
The tools and materials I used a scrap piece of 1/2-inch plywood, a cordless circular saw, and a handsaw for the smaller cuts. And I used a measuring tape to measure it all out and a pencil to make the points, and then I used a framing square to connect the dots. You didn't necessarily need to use a framing square, it could be anything with a straight edge. And then just hammer and nails, and the nails I used were 6D. That's the size. Unfortunately, the footage I shot of me measuring and cutting the wood got corrupted somehow, so I'm just going to have to skip ahead to actually assembling the pieces.
After struggling with this first one, I won't show you that battle. It seems to work a lot better on something a little bit sturdier, but nailing always does. This is just kind of awkward to hammer though. That was easy. And none even split through. Fantastic.
Okay, so here's the finished seed tray. I put 4 nails down the back to hold this back piece in, and then 3 nails on each of the sides, and then I put a nail in back in to nail the corners together. I would suggest that since it's easy to miss plywood, try to make it so if it splits through on the other side, so it splits through on the inside, because you're going to be handling it on the outside, so it won't really matter too much if it's on the inside. So you can see that the soil block press fits nicely in here. This will actually hold 36 seed starts of the 2-inch size. There's 4 in this, and then it can do 9 rows across. And this is scalable for the different sizes, so if you have a 1.5 inch, you can do 5 by 11 or something like that. And the mini blocks it would do a ton. And then could do 3 3-inch ones or 4 2-inch ones. Okay, these are the tools and materials I'll be using to make the mix. I have a wheelbarrow to mix it all in. Over there is a 5-gallon bucket with 1-gallon increments on it. I got the measurements from that off of a 5-gallon bucket that already had them on there for brewing beer. So what I did is I just measured how far up the bucket the markings were, and then drew them on there with a Sharpie. And then that's just a simple measuring cup. These are the ingredients for the soil block mix. Plus I'll be using sand and soil from the garden to mix in with it, measure with that bucket over there. Now, these up here are mainly for fertilization. This is blood meal for nitrogen. This is rock phosphate for phosphorus. And this is actually hardwood ash for potassium. Potassium gets its name, or potash is actually what this is called sometimes. Potash, potassium. And now Elliot Coleman's recipe called to use agricultural lime, but you can use about twice the volume of agricultural lime, use twice the volume of ash, and it should be about the same amount of potassium. At least that's what I've read. The actual structural mix of the soil blocks comes from peat moss, compost, soil from the garden, and sand. I'm going to try in the future not to use peat moss because it only comes from certain marshes and it's being depleted rapidly. I think in the future I'll probably just try to use more compost and not use it at all. But this bale will last a very, very long time, I think. It was $20-something, so it's kind of expensive too. It's very acidic, and ash is very basic, so I'm going to combine those two to neutralize each other. And this is cow manure, and the garden and the soil has been improved some, but that's where the plants will be put, so it'll kind of get them used to that soil, because that's what they'll be put into after they've been started. And the sand is just for better drainage. I might put a little bit more sand in certain ones for like the peppers. Peppers seem to like more sand, and I have trouble germinating them otherwise. Okay, now I'm going to mix up what Elliot Coleman calls the base fertilizer, and that's 1 part blood meal, and I'm just going to use a cup. Okay, 1 cup of blood meal, 1 part blood meal. Then 1 part rock phosphate. And then he uses 1 part green sand, which is kind of, there's also like kelp meal and stuff like that, has a lot of potassium in it. But since this is like half of the potency of green sand, I'm going to put 2 cups of this in. So that's 1 part blood meal for nitrogen, 1 part rock phosphate for phosphorus, and then 2 parts hardwood ash for the potassium. Alright, now I'm just going to mix it up. Get my hands dirty. Okay, so that's the
base fertilizer mix, all organic. The ratio for the soil block mix, I'll be using 3/4 of a bucket of peat, half a bucket of sand, 1/4 of a bucket of soil from the garden, half a bucket of compost, half a cup of the wood ash, and then 2 cups of the base fertilizer. And now I'm just going to mix it up. Get my hands dirty. Elliott Coleman's mix calls for about a 1-to-3 ratio of water to mix, and I figure there's about 5 or 10 gallons of mix here, and so I'm gonna put in about 3.5 gallons of water and see where that puts me. He said it needs to be a lot wetter than you think it would need to be. Okay, so that's 3.5 gallons. I'm gonna mix it up and see what it looks like. I don't know, that seems like it's holding together pretty good. I'll give that a try. Okay, so the book says to push down and turn at the same motion. Okay, and then lift up. And then push down as you lift up over here. Yeah, bob that. I just do that now 8 more times and I got a whole row already. Look at that, soil blocks. 36 of them. Ready to go. And this one face is off so that it's easy to get them out with like a trowel. You just lift them off. Cool. Okay, these are the 3 trays all filled up with soil blocks. It's 108 blocks total. I have enough mix left probably to do 1 more tray. So that recipe I gave you earlier is probably enough for 4 trays full, or roughly 150 of the 2-inch blocks. Okay, so since each of these trays is going to have a lot of different kinds of seeds in them, I think I'm actually going to put the seeds, like one variety of tomato will be in these 4, one variety in these 4. That's about how many I need. And so I think to keep track of them, I'm going to label them 1, 2, and 3, and then from this end it'll be A, and this row will be I, and so I'll write the A, B, C, D, E, F, G, like that, and on this side I'll put 1A and then 1I on that side, so I know which side is which just looking at it. Okay, so I've got my seeds, and I have a little plastic lid here that I'm putting them on so I can get at them with a tweezer. I have the notebook, a trusty graph paper notebook. So I have tray 1 written up here, and then A, B, C, D through I. And then I put March 1st, 2011 at the top, just to so I know when I started everything. And then over here I've got some of the soil block mix that once I put them in there, I'm going to cover them with cover the seeds. Now, a lot of these seeds are like tomato seeds, they're pepper seeds. They go down about 1/4 of an inch. So just dropping them in there and putting some soil on top should do it. Now, I only put 1 seed in each block because it's less work to just have one not germinate than it would be to have to thin them when they all came up, because their seeds are more likely to germinate than not. Okay, I've got all the trays planted, and I put them over on the rocket stove bench because that maintains the most constant temperature inside the straw bale house here. And they need about 70 to 75 degrees to optimally germinate most things. Some warmer things like 75 to 80 degrees. So I'm going to try to keep them kind of warm until at least after they germinate, and then I'll put them in the window so they can get light. To keep them moist, you can use a spritz bottle just filled with water. Okay, so that's soil blocks. I've never done it before, and I hope this works out well. I'll post a follow-up to this to show the progress and how things worked, and if I do things differently, what I've learned. If other people have comments or corrections or anything like that, please post them. I always want to do things better. So, yeah, I guess that's it for this episode. See ya.